Hey, good morning, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Publishing Room. My name is Bree Smith. I am the CEO and founder of Kingdompreneur Publishing LLC, right? Here in the Publishing Room, we are here to be a resource to authors who are getting ready to be within the publishing process, just showing you some of the ins and outs as it pertains to that. And so we are super excited to be on here today. Today, we're going to be talking about from manuscript to marketplace, right? The complete publishing guide, right? The complete publishing journey. All right. And so we pray that this episode blesses you today and that you learn a lot from it. All right, guys. And so when it comes to the publishing gap, all right, this is where um you're in the process. Like I said, you feel like in your final stages of your manuscript, right? You've written everything, you've double checked all that stuff, and now you feel like, okay, I am ready to publish. Okay. And so most authors, right, they finish writing and they assume publishing is going to be simple. Like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can figure out how to get my book together. And some people can, right? And that's more so on the self-publishing end. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, the three different types of publishing, okay, which is traditional, hybrid, and self-publishing, all right? So we'll dive into that today. And then some people, like I said, maybe they're going through it, but they're trying to hurry up and push their book out. And so they upload too quickly, but not really fully understanding the ins and outs. You know what I mean? Like, how is my book really supposed to be set up? How am I, supposed to get this out, market it, all these things. So, like I said, they kind of rush the process without really fully doing market research. And we had talked about that last week, right? And some people, like I said, this is why it's important to know what your target audience is and what problem you're helping to solve. Because when you're getting ready to do what? Market and sell the book, if you don't understand those things, it's going to be very hard to be able to monetize your book. Okay. Also too, some people they will stall for months. They done written books. There's people that got tons of things in notebooks. They have tons of things on the computer and they just sit there. They don't even release it. Right. And it could be analysis paralysis. All right. Some people feel like, oh, it's not perfect yet, so I'm not even going to do it. Some people, it's a fear of, it could be for fear of failure, fear of success. Right. And so they will not publish their books. Right. And then two, some it's just they like the structure or the know-how on how to publish the book. Okay. So the difference between published authors and stalled authors is not talent, it's a process. Okay, guys. So always remember that it has nothing to do with talent, it has everything to do with a process. And so today, like I said, we're going to do the complete publishing roadmap. Okay, to be able to help educate you clearly without overloading you when it comes to the publishing journey. All right. And so, number one, we're going to look at the manuscript readiness. Okay. Is the content complete? All right. So, like I said, hopefully, before you even get to the process, right? You might have written, and I don't feel like there's any problem with you writing, right? Um, the book, and then maybe, like I said, now you're trying to go back and like, okay, is this really clear, right? Because like I said, if it's not solving a particular problem, you need to go back and say, okay, what particular problem am I solving and for what audience? So if you go back and you read your manuscript and you're like, man, I'm all over the place, it's really not a solution, or you know what I mean, to a particular problem, then you might want to pause, like I said, before you even try to go publish. Okay, publish your book. However, let's say, no, you know who your particular audience is, you know who what problem you're helping to solve for that particular audience. It's like, okay, right? Now it's going back and making sure, like, okay, is my transitions okay and things like that. One thing I will say, guys, it is not the publisher's responsibility to like insert your chapters, all right, within your book. That is not your publisher responsibility. That is your responsibility as an author, right? If you're coming to a publisher, that means you're in your final stages. right? Yeah, you might need help with some copy editing and things of that nature, right? Just to clean it up. But it should already be to a place where your book is ready to be published. If your publisher is having to go back and add chapters and really kind of help, like, you got to understand, like, their book is not really necessarily finished, right? And honestly, I would suggest that even before you even publish, maybe sitting down with the publisher, and that might be an extra fee, and sitting down and be like, hey man, or like, can you help me to walk through this process? Right? Help me walk through this process where you feel like I can, where's the transitions? Where does a chapter start? Where does it end? Because it's really not going to be your publisher's job. Like, they can guess all day, but remember, you wrote the book. And so it is your job and responsibility to ensure that certain things are done within the book. Not to say your publisher can't help, but a lot of times, like I said, people get upset and mad, after something's published, and it's like, oh, well, that's not right. Well, it's like, you did not, do your end of the bargain, which was complete the book. You wanted the publisher to complete the book. And like I said, when you're going to a publisher and you're not self-publishing, your book, your manuscript needs to be ready, outside of, like I said, the errors, and outside of, like, dressing the book up, making sure it has, the other elements that we're going to talk about. And so I always want y'all to know that, like, just make sure your book is ready. It's in its final draft stages, right? Because if you're going to use a publisher, right? And even if you're going to self-publish, because people are going to look at you and be like, hey, what's going on here? And you want them to buy your book, but it's just a complete mess. And so you don't want that. Okay. Now, number two, this is the editing and refinement stage. All right. So here, this is when we're looking at copy editing for clarity, grammar. You're also proofreading for the final polish, and ensuring your message is clear and credible. Okay. That is what we're doing in that process. And so a lot of times I will even suggest, like, especially, here's some tips if you're going to just self-publish and not even use a publisher, right? A lot of times what you can do, I'm gonna give you some tips, right? Like I said, I know a lot of people don't like using AI, and I'm not saying use AI to rewrite your thing, but you can use ChatGPT to look over, right? Like, okay, is my spelling, my punctuation, my syntax, is this clear? All those things, right? And just tell it, like, keep the voice and how I've written this out. Maybe you go paragraph by paragraph and just have them do the minor tweaks, right? You can use it for that, right? You can use the free version of that or the paid version. I think the paid version is only $20 a month. You can also use Grammarly, right? Grammarly will go in. Now, I will say, with the free version, you're not going to get as heavy as you would if you paid the $30 a month for them to go in and really help, like, tweak some things and all that, right? I would suggest using those tools though, right? And then too, like, take it back old school. Now, I'm gonna be cautious with this. Be led by the Spirit on, like I said, on who to use, as far as if you're gonna have somebody be like a proofreader for you to try to catch certain things, or somebody that'll go back. I honestly suggest, like, if you know somebody that's like a elementary school teacher or a teacher, right, that can go in and help you with your punctuations and stuff like that. Like, I know I used my cousin on my first book to go back, because she was an elementary school teacher and a principal. So she knew what to do and go in and look for certain things and make sure stuff was in order. So I would say, find somebody that you trust and that you're led by the Spirit if you're going to self-publish when it comes to that. Okay. Don't just be finding some mojo, like your homeboy, homegirl, because people will steal your ideas and steal your whole thing. And then you'll be like, oh my God. And we're going to talk about protection and things of that nature in a minute. But just making sure, guys, that you're protecting yourself when it comes to that, right? But you do want to have somebody that can kind of go back and look over that. Also, too, guys, you can hire a freelancer through Fiverr that can do your copy editing, right? That'll I ain't saying they're gonna be cheap, but they can be affordable within your budget, right? And there's people for all different types of budgets, right? And so you just have to find the one. Like I said, I always tell people, make sure you're looking at the ratings, at the reviews, right? I like to look for people that have 4 to 5 star ratings and they have a lot of positive reviews, right? Hardly any negative reviews, and somebody that's within my budget if I'm going to hire a freelancer to help in the process of that. Okay, guys? And so I would be my suggestion. All right. If you're going to self publish, that's what I would do. Now, step 3 or phase 3 of the process, guys, is going to be the formatting and interior design of the book. So this is where we're going to be looking at what proper margin, spacing, the layout of the book. Because like I'm about to show y'all. I'm about to show you about 2 through 3, about 4 different books. Okay. One's gonna be my children's books, which y'all know we do not publish children's books here. I know how to publish them. If you need help, we can, like I said, do an author consult or self-publishing consult, and I can walk you through the process. It's just because I don't want you having to pay the middleman with me. Because like I said, you're paying a lot of money for illustrations. You might as well just do it yourself. And I can walk you through that process. But I'm going to show you, like I said, just a few different books in a second. Okay. Um, is it reader friendly formatting, right? Like, or is it all over the place? Like you want like a clear formatting, right? Where it's like, ooh, this is easily digestible. It looks good. You know what I mean? Is it professional interior structure? Does it have these things, right? And if you're going to self-publish, you're going to have to invest in formatting software. Okay, so that could be in Adobe InDesign. And like I said, that's going to be in a learning curve. You might have to watch YouTube videos on how to do that. You know what I mean? And on top of that, that's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on which version of Adobe design you're even going to get. Okay. Also, too, Atticus. Now, Atticus is a little bit more affordable. It's $147. And I believe that's just a lifetime. You just pay that one time. And like I said, it's more on a easier learning curve, right? And it'll literally walk you through the process on how to set up. It has different formatting, all that type of stuff. So I would suggest using that. Or if you don't want to do that, once again, you can hire a freelancer through a company called Fiverr.com, right? And they can actually do the hard part for you, right? Once again, you're looking at somebody that has 4 to 5 star ratings, a lot of positive reviews, and somebody that's actually going to be within your budget if you're going to do that. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. So I know I told y'all guys last week that I was going to show you. So these are my children's books that are written. Okay. Now the first time, these are my first ones. So these are the ones that I did with Saddleback, but I also have just like the regular paperback version. Okay. And these are the ones that I've self-published on my own, like from start to finish. Okay. Now, when it comes to, especially as you can see, like I'm just opening up, like I said, you got a lot of the children's illustrations. You see how, we got the box here that has, the words of the book. You see how it's like, but you see how it's like laid out properly. I'm about to show you regular books too. I'm just kind of showing you this, all right, as it pertains to the interior formatting. Now, I also helped to co-author this book, which I wrote with the visionary Dr. Shirley Clark. Shout out to her, and she has her own publishing company called Jabez Books. Um, so when she did this book, she actually formatted it and everything, as you could see. You see how it's clear. You see how you got page numbers. You see how that's like indented, but then they have the bold T right there. Okay. I'm about to show you another one of the books she did, which is very phenomenal. I just really like how it's clean cut. You see how it's readable? I know you guys really can't see, but it's like very readable. It's spacious. It's all that. Like you want stuff that's going to be positive. Here's another book that she did. It's called Rich Mind, Rich Life. Okay. And I really like how you see how she has that, like she made that, like she made her book stand out. You see what I'm saying? You want your interior to really stand out, right? But like I said, you want it readable. You know what I mean? Like readable. You see how it has spacing, all that. You don't want something that's going to be cluttered all over the place, just looks messy when it comes to doing a book, all right? And not every book is the same, right? You saw how the 2 books she published was different from the other, right? You want to, like I said, have very clear formatting because you want it to be readable and digestible to the reader. Okay. So that's how you have to think as far as, okay, interior formatting. Okay. So always remember presentation impacts perception. All right. You want this to be, like I said, you don't want the person that they look at your book and they like, oh, I like the cover, and then and then it's like they go in and like, ooh, I can't even read this. It's hard. I can't even read this, and they put it to the side, right? And so you're not getting no good reviews, nothing, because the interior, right, was off. All right. Now, when it comes to the cover design and branding, okay. So once again, we're looking at a strategic design for your target audience. So Breeze Heavily Adventures, right? It's based off my life testimony. So the first book right here, as you can see, this is Jesus, Breeze Heavenly Adventures with Jesus. And so as you can see, it's like me as a little girl. Here goes the Lord, right? As you can see, this is the subtitle at the bottom. And then at the time, I have my maiden name on here by Bray Brown, right? And so as you can see, that's like the front cover. The same thing even with this one, right? Once again, because it was a series, Breeze Heavenly Adventures with Jesus. Um, and it says the true meaning of friendship. So once again, we have Jesus on the cover, we have little me, and then you have a friend on the side here, right? And once again, we have my name at the bottom. Okay. Now, when it comes to the back of the books, guys, okay, and I'm gonna show you even from Dr. Clark's books as well. You want to make sure, and I'm not saying you have to, it just helps. It makes your book look more professional. Okay. I've seen books that have been published and they don't have the ISBN barcodes. Okay. I believe that you should have them. But like I said, to each his own. Okay. Now, as you can see here, we have my picture here. And then on here, we have a back of the book blurb. The back of the book blurb is going to talk about a little bit, like a little brief summary about what the book is going to be about, right? Because when people are going into bookstores or well, especially back in the day when you go in a bookstore, even at the library, the first thing you're gonna do is look at the cover and you're gonna look at the back and you're gonna kind of skim through it like, is this something I want to read? You know what I mean? And so that is gonna give that information. And then also we have what we call the author bio. Okay. Here, once again, we set it up a little differently. We got our picture right here, the author bio, and like I said, a little bit of the back of the book blurb. Okay. You don't necessarily always have to put your author bio, okay, in the picture on the back cover. You can put it on a back page, okay, and things of that nature. And so, like I said, we're gonna show you once again, remember I was telling you like Dr. Clark on this book did not put a barcode, right? She didn't want that. And you don't have to, right? I know when it comes to Amazon KDP, they do give out their own ASIN numbers, right? And so a lot of people for that reason is like, okay, if I'm only going to use Amazon only, I'm not going to do that, right? But as you can see, you know, she has a little bit about herself, right? And then of course what the book is about, like having that back of the book blurb. Okay. Also too, guys, something else I'm gonna hook y'all up with, especially if you are a business owner. Okay. um I'm sorry, y'all, I hit the mic. So once again, information about this book that she has, this is her bio, and then this is the barcode. What I love about this is in the back of the book, she even talks about, right, her program. If you guys are coaches, right? If you have a ministry, if you have a business, right? You can put that information in the back of the book. If it ties in, right? It has to tie in. Don't just be like, you know, you writing a ministry book, but you trying to promote your business. Like, no, like let it tie in, okay? So if you have a ministry book, then you know you want to bring people back to the ministry, tie it in that way, okay? So I hope that makes sense. But I love how she has the resource center. You see how she has like the different programs, the books that she offers, all that type of stuff, right? In the back of the book. And I suggest doing that because that's going to allow people to realize that you are a resource center, right? And you are more than just a published author. Same thing with me, right here in the back of in this children's book, I have a resource center, okay? So we have prayers, right? We have prayers, we have scripture references, right? We even have parent-child interaction activity questions. Okay, remember I told you my cousin is a school teacher as well as she's been a principal and all those things. So she has helped me to develop that because a lot of times we're not adding these things in our book. And I'm not saying you have to, but it can really help to enhance the book. Do you see what I'm saying? As it comes to that. Also, too, guys, you want to make sure that in the book, you ain't got to always have a dedication, right? But you definitely got to have a title, like a copyright page. Okay. Literally, y'all. I'm gonna help y'all out. This is the simplest way. So you ain't trying to think like, how do I make a copyright page? You can literally go to ChatGPT and have them make you a generic copyright page to put in your book, right? And then your publisher or you can go in, make the tweaks, right? The things that you want to add in there, right? Which should be your email address. It should have your ISBN numbers and things of that nature, a website where people can find you, all that type of stuff, or your publisher, all those types of things. All right. Well, it's going to be, and then if you use a scripture, making sure that you have that, or if you use quotes, you know what I mean? So you just want to make sure that your book is professional as possible as it comes to that. All right. And so when it comes to cover design, I know some people that likes to use Canva, right? They will use Canva. I don't think there's no problem with Canva. I think if you're a very creative person and you know what you're doing, then yeah, definitely you can definitely do that. Once again, you can use Adobe InDesign, so you can do that. But like I said, that's more like people that are very much like into that, graphic artists, things of that nature. Also, there's a thing called Easy Cover Maker. They have like a $49. You just pay $49 for a lifetime, right? In order for them to, or you go in and make the type of cover you want. Or once again, you can hire a freelancer on Fiverr.com, okay, to actually help you with that. All right. Now, phase 5. This has to do with what? The ISBN, copyright, ownership, all that. Okay. Like I said, for me personally, I believe that your book should have an ISBN and a barcode. You're going to purchase that through a place called Broker.com. It is very monopolized. Okay. There's no, like, that's the only place in the world you can buy an ISBN and a barcode, and they cost $150. Now, can you buy ISBNs by themselves? Of course. Can you buy barcodes by themselves? Of course. But I would buy them together, right? And I would do one at a time. Because if you try to buy a bunch of them, and let's say you ain't even published all them books, but you just got them sitting there, you know what I mean? Just do it one at a time. I know some people are like, but that's more money. But I'm like, you want to get both the ISBN and the barcode, okay? And I would suggest this. Get the barcode that does not have the price attached to it. Get the 9,000 barcode. Don't get the other barcodes that have the price. You can, but I'm just letting you know. Let's say you're trying to sell your book, but you want to do a sale. Okay, let's just say your book is normally $19.99. Okay, but let's say you want to bring your book down because you're doing an event, right? And you want to run a sale. Okay, and let's say you want to bring the book down from $19.99 maybe to like $15.99, right? Or even $10.99. Well, because the back of your book, I mean, you can, okay. If the back of your book says 19.99, like that's the price that it's always going to be, even if you try to get your book in stores, right? And you be like, oh, well, I want to run a sale. It's yeah, you can run a sale, but at the end of the day, so for me, I just think I wouldn't put the price on the back of the book, but to each its own. If you want to put a price on the back of the book, you can, right? But if I were you, I would just get the ISBN and then the barcode by itself. So that way, if you decide that you want it to go higher, whatever, you can do that, right? You can actually sell your book for whatever price you want because, like I said, it's not locked in, right, into the system. So that would just be a suggestion. All right. Once again, you don't have to get a barcode on the back of your book. Like I said, a lot of people just publish through Amazon, and Amazon is going to give you their own version of an ISBN called an ASIN. Okay. The Amazon identifier number. Okay. So just preparing you for that if that's what you choose. Now, when it comes to protecting your intellectual property, I'm gonna give you two ways if you choose to do so, because some people don't do this at all. Okay, but if you're adamant and you like, no, I want to protect my work, there's two ways. They got the first way, which is they call the poor man's copyright. Okay, well, we call it the free way. And so that way is when you take your finished copy of your book, right? You print off a copy and then you mail it to yourself via certified mail, okay? So that it's dated and unopened, okay? So that you can protect yourself. But there's another way to do that, which is through the actual copyright office, and it's only $65, guys. Okay, it's only $65 to copyright your published work. You have to set up an account with them though, and they will actually walk you through the steps. Now, this has to be the final draft. It cannot be like a early rough draft that you just started. No, this is the final draft of your book that is getting ready to go into the publishing process. And you usually want to do it 1 to 3 months prior to you publishing. So it has to be 1 to 3 months out prior to you publishing your book. And the reason why is because it helps to keep your book eligible for attorney fees as well as statutory damages if you ever have an infringement case, right, for copyright. So not to say that you can't ever do it, but like that's going to be the time frame if you want legal protection for your book. So always keep that in mind. Some publishers have that stuff built in, and some publishers do not. Okay, I know for me, that's not something that I have built in, but like I said, for me, I'd rather just tell you, you can go and purchase it yourself. If you come through me, of course, there's going to be a middleman price for that. Okay, but it ain't that much. Like, I'm not going to eat you up in price, but it's just because if we're having to do the copyright for you. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, when it comes to retaining control and royalties. Now, this is what I'm going to talk to you guys about. Remember, I told you I was going to tell you the difference between a traditional publisher, a hybrid publisher, and a self-publisher. When it comes to the traditional publishing world, these are when they approach you. Okay. And normally they don't just approach a regular person. I'm just going to let y'all know this is going to be people that are, that have a brand, that have really established themselves in the marketplace, right? So there's a lot of times you're gonna see celebrities that get these types of deals, or even like, and I hate to use it like more like celebrity uh preachers, if you will. Like I said, people that have names and they have followings and brands. And so what they'll do is they will come and they will approach them with a publishing deal, and they'll say, hey, we would like you to write a book, and they might give you the choice on the type of topic they want you to write it about, or they might not. They might tell you what type of book they want you to write about. And they'll say, hey, we're going to give you a $50,000 advance. So you're super excited because these people are getting ready to give you money to write a book that they're going to publish and all that. Remember, they gave you a $50,000 advance. Okay, catch it. Now, your book goes to publishing, boom. Okay. Your book might hit the New York's Best Times list. You might have a lot of sales. But the thing is, you're not going to start seeing any royalties from that book until the first $50,000 that they paid you up front has been repaid back. And then after that, they will resume royalties. But the thing is, they control the ownership of your book. Do you see the difference there? They are the controller. They are the owner. Even though you wrote the book, they own your book. They own it, right? And so, there's some people that be like, oh, I got a publishing deal. And I'm not saying that you should never do publishing deals, right? But what I'm saying is protect yourself. Okay, protect yourself, because you always want to be the owner of your work. How the Lord talks to me about it, he always says, Brianna, look at the Tyler Perry model of business, right? Tyler Perry didn't go to Hollywood He made Hollywood come to him. He does everything, got his own studio. You see what I'm saying? His own network, all that. You know what I mean? So that he wouldn't what? Be controlled. He's the controller. He's the owner. And that's how you have to think of it. Okay. Now, when it comes to hybrid publishing, guys, that's going to kind of, you're not having to publish yourself, right? But a lot of times you are going to have to pay the publisher a fee to publish for you, right? Because they're having to get ISBNs, they're having to get your cover design, they're having to do the interior formatting, they're having to get the copyright. I mean, not even just the copyright, they're having to do the copy edits, all that. So you are paying for that process when you are paying a hybrid publisher. But the good thing, most hybrid publishers allow you to do what? To have control, right? Or have ownership of your book, as well as most of them will give you royalty rights. And so you want to find somebody that's going to give you 100% ownership and 100% royalty rights, meaning they don't keep any of the royalties. So all the money goes to you. Okay. That is what you want if you're going to hire somebody to publish your book. And then the third thing is self-publishing, and that's all you. So you're the person that's going to make sure the editing and the refinement process is done. You're the person that's going to make sure the formatting of the book gets done. The cover design is done. You're getting the ISBNs. You're doing the copyright, all that. You're doing it start to finish. Okay. And so a lot of that is going to, take a lot of you doing a lot of that. Okay. So that is the difference between a traditional publisher, a hybrid publisher, and a self-publisher. All right. So I always wanted to let you guys know that. But like I said, you want to make sure that you are the owner of the book. I'm not saying that you can never try to do a traditional publishing route, but if they're not going to allow you ownership over something that you wrote, you might want to reconsider, right? Or pray and ask the Lord, what book can I give away that, you know what I'm saying, like that can go that route, and it's not going to hurt me. You know what I mean? That's just something I would think about. All right. Now, phase 6 is distribution and platform setup. All right. So you, like I said, we like to use Amazon. Okay, most people use Amazon. Okay, but I also like to use Lulu. So Amazon is when you're like, listen, I ain't trying to handle no shipping and handling. I just want to be able to, whenever I do events, I want to be able to print off my own author copies for the events. And then I have them, or like I said, I can send people to Amazon and they can go ahead and purchase the book. Like I said, I don't have to worry about getting it printed out, getting it shipped to me, and then shipping it back out. Okay, so I would suggest Amazon for that. Now, if you're a person that's like, nah, I want complete control, then you want to go ahead and set up your own author website. Okay, where you're actually going to be the person responsible for shipping and handling of the book, either through the United States Postal Service, FedEx, UPS, all of that. Now you can use Lulu for that, where, like I said, you can upload your manuscript, your finished manuscript, the book cover, all of that to Lulu. Okay. And then you can actually go and print off author copies. So now, once again, you can have that, set that up, right? When you're doing any type of event, doesn't matter if you're throwing a conference and you're selling your book at a conference, if you are at a trade show selling your book, a pop-up shop, whatever, you are able to get your own author copies. But like I said, and even though, like I said, the difference between Amazon and you selling it yourself is you have to understand, because Amazon is the person that's going to be distributing the book, right? Printing the book, all of that. They are going to take a little bit of your royalties because you're having to pay them for that. Okay. Unlike so you'll get royalties. It's not going to be the full thing versus if you were to do everything yourself, where you can keep the 100% of your royalties. And so, that's just a personal preference. You're going to have to think, do I want to handle shipping and handling and all that type of stuff? Some people, it's worth it. Some people not. But if you are going to do it yourself, I would just put a disclaimer like, yeah, my book is this price, but remember, you're still going to have to pay shipping and handling because we're shipping this out to you. And then make sure that you give people a really good time frame for shipping and handling. So to be like, hey, this will be ready within 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 4 weeks, something like that. Hopefully it comes sooner, but if it comes on the back end, people are not going to get upset with you because their book took forever to get to them. All right. So you just want to make sure that that if you're going to do it yourself, that you weigh all the options when it comes to that. All right. And so, guys, this is pretty much the exact same framework that we use here at Kingdompreneur Publishing. All right. So we just kind of wanted to walk you through the process. Like I said, that from start to finish, right? Manuscript readiness, editing and the refinement process, the formatting, interior design, cover design, and branding, getting your ISBN, and then, like I said, the distribution platform setup. Okay, you can do it yourself, or like I said, you can hire a publishing company such as ours. And like I said, we do that all here at Kingdompreneur Publishing, okay, LLC. So, why authors get overwhelmed? Okay, this is the reason why a lot of people don't want to self-publish is because it's, as you can see, it's a lot. You have to, you listen, most people are like, listen, I didn't wrote this book. You know how long it took me to write this book? You think I'm trying to go through the process of publishing? And then, like I said, some people, they're just built like that. They're like, nah, if I wrote it, I'm going to do it from start to finish. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But some people are like, man, we need help. I don't understand how to do that. And like I said, some people, they'll try to go to YouTube, they'll try to go to Google to try to figure it out. That's a lie, y'all. Like I said, we offer author consults here. We offer self-publishing consults, marketing consults. Talk to somebody, right? To schedule some time, you can talk to us, and we can, like I said, we can kind of go deeper and step by step and things that you need to ensure that you're successful with that. A lot of times too, especially if you go to YouTube, everybody got advice on how to do something. You be like, okay, which advice is the best advice? Not to say, or the right advice, right? Not to say that any of them wrong, right? They just have discovered a process that works for them. But like I said, if you're listening to too many voices, you're going to, right, end up getting confused, and you don't want to be confused, right? And then also too, you get like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of people that are afraid to make mistakes, especially when it costs them. And so, if you have never self-published a book, you want to make sure, okay, that you know exactly what you are doing from start to finish, because it can cost you a lot of money. All right. And then, of course, like we already talked about, analysis paralysis, where people are like, oh, I got to be perfect, got to be perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Your book, even though we love it, right, and it can bless a lot of people, there's still going to probably be a few minor mistakes. That's with any book, okay? But that's okay. At least you tried. There's some people that they don't even want to try, guys. They don't even want to try. Okay. So now, how do we help support the process here at Kingdompreneur Publishing? Well, we offer our publishing packages, all right? So that includes editing, formatting, cover design, ISBN, distribution setup, right? We also offer marketing and promotional services, right? So like I said, we do the interviews, called to write, right? They used to be called the author push, but now they're called call to write. We also are offering with each of our packages social media promotion, right? So 1 week social media promotion, and then, like I said, going all the way up to our highest package. So that's our $397 package, but going all the way up to $1997 package. We give you a month worth of social media promotion on our social media pages. All right. And then, of course, we can hook you up with press releases if that's what you desire, radio interviews, all kind of things, guys. So don't ever feel like, man, like, how am I gonna get my book out? Okay. And then last but not least, we do offer our consulting services. We have the author consult. So let's say you're in the process where you were stuck writing your book, and you're like, man, I don't know. Or maybe you're like, okay, I need to take a step back because I don't feel like I really know who my target audience is and what problem I'm helping to solve. Contact us for that. You might be in the process now where you're like, Bree, I don't want to hire a publisher, but I do need help with the self-publishing process. Hire us for a self-publishing consult. Like I said, we'll go deeper. We'll even show you like, ways to actually do this so it's not so overwhelming for you. And then last but not least, we offer, right, marketing, selling strategy consults, right? Even branding consults. So let's say you want to turn the information, right? You don't want to just write a book, right? You want to create a business. Your book is just one of the products in your business, right? We can help you do that too. How to create a coaching program, a mentorship, some type of digital product, or even like a course, like an online course, right? We can help you with that. And so, guys, like I said, don't be afraid to reach out to us. You can go to our website, kingdompreneurpublishing.com. You can also send me an email at info@kingdompreneurpublishing.com. And last but not least, you can hit us up via DM, right? Direct message or private message. And like I said, we could chat. All right. And most importantly, guys, like I said, don't feel free to connect with us, right? We have free discovery calls. So on that, we can talk about the publishing packages, we can talk about the different consulting that we do, marketing, all that. It's a free 15-minute call with us and via Zoom, and you can get that scheduled. All right. The link to it is actually in the bottom. It'll be in the bio or on Facebook. It'll actually be in the description. All right. So, like I said, do not be afraid to connect to us, and we will love to answer any questions you may have. All right. And so, guys, all right. We love you with the love of Christ, and we pray that this has blessed you. And until next week, all right, we will chat again soon. All right, guys. Bye.